Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Goodness. 2024 is an ultimate election year. Yes, it's history making in terms of number of elections being held worldwide. At a high level, about 64 countries plus the European Union will face the election before the end of 2024. Globally, more voters than ever in history will vote at various elections held throughout the year. A combined population of almost 50% of people are going to vote, including 8 of the world's 10 most populous nations, including Bangladesh, Brazil, India, Indonesia, Mexico, Pakistan, and Russia, and of course the United States faced election this year. World's largest democracy, India held its election between April and June over the 7 phases of election cycle and elected 543 seats for a lower house of the parliament, where 640 million casted their votes. The second largest was for the European Parliament held in European Union in June. So a total of 720 members of the European Parliament were elected to represent more than 450 million people from 27 member states. So, what are the key observations and how it's related to the domestic condition is something that we are going to look at, right? So Taiwan, in particular, had their election in January 2024. This democratic island faced the election almost growing threat from China, who claims it as part of its territory for a very long time. So Taiwan elected the new president, Lai Ching-te, after 8 years ruling of Tsai Ing-wen, right? The former and the incoming presidents belong to the Democratic Progressive Party in Taiwan. It is important to note the former president, Tsai Ing-wen, is the first female to hold that position until recently. So, the party system in Taiwan is currently dominated by 2 major parties. So, who are they? The Kuomintang, which broadly favors maintaining the constitutional framework of the Republic of China Constitution and deepened economical cooperation with the mainland China. So who is Kuomintang? The Nationalist Party of China, or the Chinese Nationalist Party, is a major political party in the Republic of China, initially based in Chinese mainland and then in Taiwan since 1949. The KMT is a center-right to a right-wing party. The Domestic Progressive Party is a Taiwanese nationalist and a center-to-center-left political party in Taiwan. So it is currently a major ruling party in Taiwan, controlling both the presidency and the central government. As you can note, center-to-center-left political party has been ruling Taiwan for quite some time. Have you heard about the recent outcomes of the elections that was held in Pakistan? The elections were held following 2 years of political unrest after the Prime Minister Imran Khan of the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf was removed from the office by a no-confidence motion. Subsequently, Khan was arrested and convicted for corruption and barred from politics for 5 years. And this is the most funniest part. In the run-up to the election, a Supreme Court ruling stripped the PTIs of the electoral symbol for failing to hold the intra-party election for years. So they stripped the symbol of the party. On election night, the television broadcast showed PTI-backed independent candidates leading in at least 127 National Assembly seats, which hindered at a potential majority. However, the announcement of final results was abruptly halted. Subsequently, independent candidates ended up winning 103 general seats, including 97 backed by the PTI. As a result of the election, the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf became the single largest party in the national level in terms of both popular vote and seats. As you know, Asif Ali Zardari is currently the president of Pakistan since this election, right? The president was a significant authority until the 18th Amendment, passed in 2010, which stripped the presidency of most its powers. Since then, Pakistan has shifted from a semi-presidential system to a purely parliamentary government. Since the amendment, the president's powers include the right to pardon, the ability to suspend or moderate any sentence passed by any court or authority. So, here's the question. Following Pakistan, will Sri Lanka abolish the executive presidency before or after the upcoming presidential election? So here's what happened in the conversation of abolishing of executive presidency over many decades. Time for a cup of tea and sit down and listen to it. There has been continuing and growing demand to abolish the executive presidency in Sri Lanka since its introduction in 1978. The demand gained considerable momentum during the recent protest movement witnessed throughout the country. One of the unequivocal demands of the Aragalaya was the immediate abolition of the executive presidency. The people acknowledged the strong nexus between the concentration of power in the executive president and Sri Lanka's multiple crises of accountability, governance, and economic management. Even prior to the formal introduction of the Constitution in 1978, the parties in the opposition, including the Sri Lanka Freedom Party, SLFP, and the several left-oriented parties, including the Janatha Vimukti Peramuna JVP, vehemently opposed the proposal to establish the executive presidency. I hope you're taking that sip from your cup of tea or a cup of coffee, because the story continues. Beginning with the 1994 presidential election, presidential candidates have repeatedly pledged to abolish this system. President Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga vowed to abolish the executive presidency and received a clear mandate to do so in 1994 and 1999. So in 2000, the proposed bill for a new constitution was poised to abolish the executive presidency, but was eventually rejected by the United National Party, UNP, led by the current president, Ranil Wickremesinghe. The UNP also affirmed its commitment to abolish the executive presidency in its Hambantota conference in 2010. At times, former President Mahinda Rajapaksa also talked about the need to abolish the executive presidency. The promise to abolish the executive presidency was one of the central election pledge of former President Maithripala Sirisena in 2015. It is a general belief among the people that the executive presidency, with its excessive powers concentrated in the hands of one individual, has been singularly responsible for weakening Sri Lanka's democracy. It has also been a cornerstone of the system of arbitrary executive governance imposed on the Sri Lankan people. The multiple crises that have presently befallen the country and the continuing erosion of the framework of democratic governance in the stark reminder of the dire consequences of the governance and the wholly negative feature of our Constitution. Its abolition has been delayed far too long. With that being said, we will have to wait and see whoever takes over the power next. Will they be able to walk the talk? At least this time around. Ooh la la la. Yes, Africa is going through major shift. There has been a lot of protest. There has been a lot of changes. Africa is going through a massive shift, rightfully so. So, what has happened in the South African election that was held very recently? Quite interesting to watch this space. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa is under growing pressure after leading the ruling African National Congress to its worst election results in 30 years, now forced to share its power. One might wonder, someone has been in power for 30 years, right? Well, the party has been in power for 30 years. So, the African National Congress has dominated South Africa's politics since the end of apartheid in 1994. So, what is apartheid? A system of institutionalized racial segregation that existed in South Africa and the Southwest Africa from 1948 to the early 1990s. Further going through the details, an authorization political culture was bred during that time, which ensured that the South Africa was dominated politically, socially, and economically by the nation's minority, the white population. In the minoritarian system, there was social stratification, campaign of marginalization, such that white citizens had the highest status, with them being followed by Indians as well as color reds, and then the black Africans. The economic legacy and the social effects of apartheid continue to the present day, particularly inequality. I know what you're thinking. European colonization entered, but those who were left behind continued on with the same mindset. African National Congress in 2024 election, their votes went up to 40%, significantly gone down from the previous election. And ANC has always polled above 50% since the country's first democratic elections in 1994, which saw the respectful Nelson Mandela became the president. In the political position, ANC has remained in the center-left. So support for the party has been dropping significantly. You would wonder why? Because the anger over high level of corruption, unemployment and crime, cost of living crisis and frequent power cuts, etc. So here is something to watch. Rise of center-right parties in particular. The support for Democratic Alliance has gone up in 2024 elections. And here is the twist. Very interesting twist for a political game indeed. South Africa's National Assembly re-elected Cyril Ramaphosa to the presidency for the second 5-year term. After his African National Congress party, center-left, struck a last-minute coalition deal with the right-wing Democratic Alliance, the Inkatha Freedom Party and Patriotic Alliance. Quite interesting, center-left striking a deal with right-wing parties. So how did the Democratic Alliance leaders are feeling about this striking a deal with the center-left? And they have overturning last year's resolution never to work with the ANC again. They have said it was important to prevent doomsday coalition between the ANC and the economic freedom fighters. Steenhuisen said that it was essential to come together and collaborate to prevent subversive forces filling the political vacuum, adding, it's a patriotic thing to do, they said. Amidst of this political power play, people's confidence is not yet won over in South Africa. In other words, political instability continues. Now, a snap election in France, closely tied with the European parliamentary election. You wonder why that France has to go through a snap election, right? Keep sipping the tea or fill up your cup again. The charismatic figure of 2017 is now categorized as headstrong and out of touch with the electorate. Now reflected by the decision of many candidates in his center-right Renaissance Party to downplay his name and image at the present campaign. It's none other than the present president of France, Emmanuel Macron. Heard about de-Macronization? Macron called the snap ballot after his party only secured 14.5% in the European election, suffered a crushing defeat in the hands of the RN. I'll take you through who is RN a little later. Managing less than half of the far-right party's score. Despite Macron's confidence image on an international stage, he nevertheless remains hugely unpopular at home. Is he taking a huge risk? I believe so. So who is RN? Marine Le Pen, the National Rally, the extreme nationalist party that won more than twice of President Emmanuel Macron's share of the vote in the recent European Union elections. So center and left supporters have every reason to worry about the surge in popularity for RN. Macron's subsequent decisions to hold a snap election was motivated partly by the belief that voters tend to punish their government in European elections, but afford them a stronger support in the national poll. To prevent a far-right victory in the France election, France's most monumentous in decades, France's four main left-wing parties, the Socialist Party, the Green, the Communist, and the France Unbowed, led by the hard left firebrand Jean-Luc Mélenchon, will campaign on a common have agreed to form a new popular front to contest the snap election. Platform and field a single joint candidate in each of the 577 parliamentary constituencies. As a far-right leader, Marine Le Pen said she would seek a national unity government if her national rally wins. This very moment, I would like to bring you into the Sri Lankan politics, which has led to the recent formation of a political alliance, believed to be with the left political stance. The new alliance, named the People's Struggle Alliance, has been formed ahead of the upcoming election. The alliance includes members from the Aragalaya movement, various civil society organizations, and several political parties, including the Frontline Socialist Party and the New Democratic Marxist-Leninist Party. So there's something for us to observe here. With that, let me take you back to Europe, in particular to France. So, what called for the snap election in France? So, we need to look at the European Union election. So, who is the European Union? The European Union is a political and economic union of 27 member states that are party to the EU's founding treaties and thereby subject to the privileges and obligations of membership. It was the 10th parliamentary election since the first direct elections in 1979 and the first European Parliament election after Brexit. So a total of 720 members of the European Parliament was elected to represent more than 450 million people from 27 member states. Includes Austria, Belgium, Bulgaria, Croatia, Cyprus, Czechia, Denmark, Estonia, Finland, France, Germany, Greece, Hungary, Ireland, Italy, Latvia, Lithuania, Luxembourg, Malta, Netherlands, Poland, Portugal, Romania, Slovakia, Slovenia, Spain, and Sweden. So in June 2024, the European People's Party, centre-right party, won the most seats in the European Parliament. The pro-EU centrist, liberal, environmentalist parties suffered a significant loss, while anti-EU right-wing populist parties made a substantial gain. The right-wing European conservatives and reformist groups overtook the centrist Renew Europe group to win the third most seats. Fears of resurgence of the right-wing parties in the continent is looming. The outcome may have a significant impact on Europe's ongoing support of Ukraine in its war against Russia, as several right-wing parties in the Western Europe has expressed opposition to providing continued aid to Kyiv's ongoing war effort. So, who will be the next party leading France? The center-right Renaissance, left-wing alliance, the New Popular Front, or the far-right Marine Le Pen's National Rally? Time to watch. So, what is changing in politics? Some of many observations. We are now living in a political climate very different from the one existed in 1990s. The Berlin Wall was torn down. Communist regimes have begun collapsing across Central and Eastern Europe. The most dramatic advance of democracy during the entire 30-year period. Powers such as Russia and the People's Republic of China are openly challenging the West liberal democratic model, even as popularists and nationalists launch attacks on the model from within the West itself. So today, by contrast, we are living in what Larry Diamond labels a democratic recession, with reasons to worry that it could turn into a full-scale depression. So in the 20th century, politics was categorized by an ideological divide between a left and a right, defined largely in economic terms, with the former demanding greater socio-economic equality and a distributive state, while the latter favored individual freedom and strong economic growth. Today, the axis is shifting towards a politics based on identity. As part of this change, both the left and the right are redefining their own objectives. So what does this all mean to the upcoming elections in Sri Lanka? Let's explore that in the future episode, shall we? Until then, look after yourself. I will meet you in another episode of Goodness. Thank you.